gon' tune in cause the showtime. Go ahead and call the gang up for the one time. Rap food rhyme, got them on the line. And my life's still great, I'm doing just fine. Hands up.
Getting into our first topic of the day, we're gonna start with our entertainment arena. A couple things have been going up in the air. We got the announcement for the My Hero movie, Mashoko's Tensei. What is it? Is it season 2, part 2?
Yeah, season 2, part 2.
All right. We got a couple announcements from Disney as far as movies coming up, and I thought I had another thing, but if I remember it, I'll bring it up. But the biggest thing that has been wrecking the internet, and I don't know, I would say is appropriately so, given the fact that we are almost maybe less than a week out from the series dropping. A lot of information has came out surrounding the Netflix Avatar, The Last Airbender Netflix series. Now, before we get into the discussion, if you are wondering what these changes for, you're in the right place. So let's go down the list. 1, the showrunners as well as the actors of the series have revealed that they made some changes to Sokka's, Katara's, and Aang's character. Sokka's in regards to toning down the sexism of his character from the animated series. Changes to Katara's character to remove the gender roles. Changes to Aang as far as the first book of him not going on as many adventures as he did in book 1 of the animated series. And the new thing I just found by doing research on the rest of these topics is that they are changing Aang's usage of the Avatar state to be more selective instead of how it was being used in the animated series. On top of that, the showrunner said that with this Netflix series, he said 2 things. I'm going to say the first one first, and then I'm going to say the second one. First thing he said was that for this series, they are trying to find a balance that appeals to the OG fans and people who like Game of Thrones. Then I found a quote today that said, the showrunner, Albert Kim, said to IGN, "I've used the term that this is a remix, not a cover, and that you've got to hit a lot of familiar notes, but you can't forget that this is supposed to be a new song."
No, this is not Ignition remix. This is not that. This ain't that.
This is not the Touch It remix.
They have taken away the core elements of Avatar. Aang's adventures? What do you think was all of season 1? Sokka being sexist? That was character development. What are we doing here?
I think so. The reason why they said they were changing some of the things because they said some of these elements didn't translate from the animation to the live action. And I don't feel, thinking of Avatar: The Last Airbender, I don't understand that statement, but with the fact that they are trying, I don't know, to try to make this more like a drama series, maybe I understand where they're coming from, but
that's the drama. They said they want to compare it to Game of Thrones. You know what Game of Thrones had in it? Sexism, patriarchy, genocide, go down the list. All of that was there. And that was a core element to Sokka's character development. He wasn't a strong bender. He learned how to use a sword in what, book 3 or book 4?
That was book 3, because that's when they was in the Fire Nation.
Yeah. So in my opinion, when you're saying all of this, you're trying to make it like Game of Thrones. Oh, guess what? We're Game of Thrones fans, huge Game of Thrones fans, and House of Dragon. Avatar already had those elements. The brutality, the genocide, the political intrigue. Avatar had all of that. It was toned down to fit the views of children, of course. But if y'all want to not tone it down, just show people's skin burning off when you firebend. Just show someone getting frostbite when you get hit with ice. What are we talking about here?
I would, and we're gonna have to wait until the series to come out on like to find out what they actually meant about toning down the sexism. Now, I'm not like, woo, sexism, woo, go sexism. But I do understand why that needs to be a part of Sokka's character. And when I was reading the article as well, when I was reading the responses on Twitter to this, is that yes, that helps his character development, but let's also say that this turns into the fact that Avatar has a lot of well-written, stand-up female characters. And a lot of those moments with like Katara, at the Northern Water Tribe, the introduction of the Kyoshi warriors, even when Azula, May, and Ty Lee showed up, like, those moments are enhanced just because of the fact that Sokka has this mentality that's not really his fault when you look at the Water Nation and how they're set up. It's not far-fetched for him to have those ideals, but the fact that he has those ideals gives that way for these female characters to really, like, show them what's up, to really, like, to shine those lights on those characters that help him with that development. Like, he's not just sexist because he's a boy.
Exactly. And my whole thing is rough topics in shows, sexism, drugs, genocide, all these rough terms, right? Triggering terms. If you're a good writer, you can incorporate all of these themes into a story without that in changing your message. Because having Sokka as a sexist character, he's from like this Inuit tribe in the Water Nation. That's what they're themed after. He was born in a tribe where women were supposed to do their own gender roles. That's not saying that you're promoting gender roles and saying that you don't support female equality.
Exactly.
But if anything, your theme is showing that women are equal when you have this male character exposed to powerful women.
Right.
So, like, if you take that away, it to a degree, and they're not going to like it when I say this, you're going to lower just a little bit some of the higher moments for characters like Katara, Azula, Lee May, and Ty Lee, and Suki, and all of them. Not Sukiana, Suki, the real Suki.
They know who we talking about, bro. We talking about Avatar.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, these moments, like, that's what made what was Suki's tribe again? Why am I misremembering?
Kyoshi warriors.
That's part of what made the Kyoshi warriors so cold. Like, they whooped Sokka up. And I ain't over here like, do. Oh, yeah, I heard of strong women before. And Sokka just over here like, where'd they come from?
And that's the issue that I have with, because they said they're also changing pieces of Katara's role to remove the gender roles, but that's also an important piece of her growth, because that's a big piece of the reason why she was so hell-bent on getting Paku to train her. It is the reason. It is the reason why she decided to fight him one-on-one so she could be trained, because she was she is basically, after her dad's off fighting this war, doing whatever. They don't know where he's at. Her mother's dead, so she has to take on this motherly role, taking care of herself, Sokka, and everybody else in the tribe. So she had to assume that role early, because just like you said, that's just how it was made up. That was something that she felt like she had to do. Why Sokka did the man thing to hunt for food and basically, if you really look at it, Sokka is the leader of the tribe. His dad and all the other men then pieced out, and it's Sokka.
Exactly. And so they rely on him.
Hold on. So it's not far-fetched for them to assume these roles, and to assume, in the fact that they haven't traveled outside of the Water Nation to experience the way that these gender roles are handled in other communities. Because if we want to hop into like the Fire Nation doesn't have that type of thing. It's like everybody. We got females in the army. Hands. Right. Everybody can, you can be a provider. You can be in the army. You can be, on the High Council with the Fire Lord. And it's like, but with them being confined to the Water Nation, it's not, and I want to touch on what you said. You writing the characters to have these initial beliefs is not you saying we are promoting these beliefs. You are just building a world that in this certain area, for these reasons, in this situation, this exists. But as we know from the animated series, that these characters do grow and these beliefs go away. Or they change their way of thinking.
And my whole thing is, why are you saying that doesn't translate to modern television? We still got murder. We still got genocide. We still got overthrowing kings and queens and coup d'etats and all of this other stuff. What are we talking about when we get to the Earth Nation, where they had the Earthbender? That wasn't King Boomy's land, where they basically had this whole secret underground society that was controlling the government behind closed doors.
The Dali.
Dali and all of them. Like, these are all dark themes. So how do you pick and choose which dark themes can stay and which ones don't? If you think the audience is so sensitive that they can't watch a story and separate in their minds that this is fantasy, this is acting, and the purpose of it is to deliver me entertainment through a compelling plot, compelling characters, different events, a climax, and a resolution setup, then put it there. There's nothing entertaining about perfect characters. There's nothing entertaining about that.
And that's what I was saying. And that's what I was saying when I was reading in the article. They was like, your main character doesn't have to be perfect. I think for the first season of any piece of media, I think having your main character be flawless is boring. Because where do we go from here?
Every time.
Because where do we go from here? Where are we growing from if, we have a pitch perfect character that they have no flaws?
Exactly.
And I was also, seeing some things that it might not be as serious as we think as well. But then again, it goes back into your question of like, what exactly from the animation didn't translate well into the live action?
Because the hardest thing, in my opinion, just as a fan of Game of Thrones and Avatar, the only thing that doesn't translate well is the fact that they be doing all this bending and nobody gets burned. Like, that's the animation stuff that we didn't see. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. In my opinion, we talking about what didn't translate well, it's the fact that the world of Avatar should be way more brutal than it actually is. It's brutal, but if it wasn't for kids, it would be worse.
I would say in the animation, folks did get burned, but I think it's the technicalities of how firebending is used, and we don't have to get into the technicalities of firebending, but we know they be burning people because Wazuko I messed up. We know that fire be burning people, but I think it just goes into the usage of firebending, and the other thing that they said is that they are going to expand a little bit more on the genocide of the Air Nation, as well as Kyoshi's story based on like the novels and the comics and stuff. And if they're going to show the genocide of the Air Nation, people are getting burned in the series.
And that's my thing. Now, that was the one good thing I did like. I was like, okay, you're calling this a remix. A remix is usually adding something fun, something spicy, something that's new. You don't really need to take away the hook and the chorus of a song to make a remix. You add a new verse. You fix it. You know what I'm saying? You enhance it. Showing the genocide of the Airbenders, that's perfect. That should be episode 1. If I was a showrunner, not saying I'm more skilled than them or whatever, my episode 1, let's show Aang as a kid, get that little introduction. Then we show him running away and he gets stuck in the ball. Or rather, we cut away from when he flies away till we got the genocide going on. Then he gets stuck in the ball and you end the episode with, and 100 years passed. Boom, your good intro episode. You had violence, you had intrigue in the character that ran away. Fans are going to know it's Aang. The rest of the folks are going to be like, who is this? And now he's stuck in the ice ball. What's going on? And that's episode 1.
And then let's talk about the changes to Aang. Because we've been talking about Sokka and Katara, but they said they are changing the way that Aang is going to his journey for book 1. They said that, excuse me, that he's not gonna go on all the adventures as he did in book 1. That basically, when he's gonna have a vision of whatever, what happens in that first time he goes to Southern Water Tribe, or they said the vision of something that happens in the Northern Water Tribe, and he was, I have to go there and I have to fix this. But I feel like we're missing the point of the reason of why Aang was taking all of these detours.
Exactly.
So let me break this down for everybody. The reason why Aang ran away is because they, identified him as the Avatar, like when he was like 12. And this is around the same time that Sozin is, he's still rising up to power. They're conquering all of these nations and stuff. And it's like, hey, Aang, hold on. We need you. Something. They like, hey, Aang, we need you to strap up and learn all of these elements because we need you to go fight Sozin. That's a lot for a 12-year-old, which is the first reason why he ran away. Now, he was not thinking that he was going to run away and get trapped in an iceberg for 100 years. But he gets trapped in the Avatar state inside of an iceberg for 100 years. And when you break out, you find out that the grandson of the dude that they wanted you to fight 100 years ago is still on the same bullshit that his granddaddy was on. And hey, you're still 12 and we need you to learn all these 4 elements so you can go fight this guy. It's the same deal.
And my whole thing is he's a child. Like, the whole point in him going on the adventures and not taking things seriously is because he has no affinity for what's going on. He's like, oh, no, I'm sure some airbenders are alive. Oh my gosh, I used to come here and surf with the fish back when we was in a world of peace. Like, his adventures were a reflection of the fact that his mind was not in the same state of time as everybody else.
I don't think it was that. I think it was the fact that he was still trying to run away from his responsibilities. But the thing is that as he went on these adventures, as he was taking these detours, he was learning the damage that the Fire Nation had dealt to these communities along the way. Like, this is the effect of the fact of you running away. And instead of him trying to come to terms with that and, strap up, get into the Avatar state, let's go fight Ozai, he's going on these little detours and trying, and like you said, he's still a kid. He's still trying to run away from those responsibilities and still try to live this carefree life because, the only people who know he's the Avatar is him, Katara, and Sokka at this point.
And most of those detours, if I recall correctly, only really happened in book 1. Everything became a lot more like streamlined and focused after that. Like, there was a few little side stories like with Jet and all of those little side stories, but they weren't really like detour fun adventures. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, what? Like, that's where I'm a little confused because book 1 is an introduction to this character. He has to learn that the world is upside down. It's not what I expected. It's my fault. I need to grow up, handle this, and protect the people that I've loved. Because all of the people I love from the past are all gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has to. That's the entire essence of book 1. Learning who your enemies are. So when you take away the adventures, what do we have left? We just have a SparkNote copy of Aang now?
And it goes back into the point of the main character doesn't have to be perfect. Like, yes, Aang is the Avatar, but he doesn't have to bust out the iceberg and like, I'm the Avatar and now I'm going to take on all of my responsibilities because that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, it took 3 books for Aang to finally buck up and be like, hey, let's go fight Ozai.
Exactly. And plus, he still had to learn bending along the way. And like, some of those adventures, let's not talk about. Well, that's in the future. I don't even know how they're going to handle that and if this series lasts that long. I was going to talk about like the owl temple in the sand that was stuck in the sand and all of that.
The thing that I'm afraid of, given all the changes to the characters and that this is book 1, I am afraid for Azula. I have many nightmares of how they could change, how they might change her character, because Azula was a complex character in the animation. Even with the fact that, like you said, some of these heavy themes were dumbed down for the animation, even then, Azula was a complex character that did some very like, whoa, girl, what the fuck type actions. And if you are already saying that there are some pieces from the animation that's not translating correctly into the live action, when it's really her time to start shaking the table, what is that going to look like?
Azula's Avatar's version of Joffrey, since they want to keep making comparisons to Game of Thrones. That is a traumatized kid who's going to get what she wants.
Yeah. If we want to compare them in that aspect, yes. But and that's the only thing that I could think about when all this news was coming up at the same time. I was like, I'm very afraid on what they're gonna do to Azula. Are they gonna make her sympathetic? That's not a bad thing, but that's not her. That's not her character. Even now, with the new comics that are dropping with Azula, she's still not sympathetic.
You honestly, now I see why the original animated showrunners left.
Exactly.
Because I'm like, I'm not in show business, I'm not in Hollywood, but I'm almost like 90% confident that the folks out there in Hollywood and Netflix was like, no, we got to change this. What are you talking about? That takes away the core of the show. No, we just got to change this. We got to change this. This isn't going to fit. Fans aren't going to like this. Who is the fans? My theory
is that they might be trying to cater to people who don't know. I won't say it's Twitter. I'm just saying people that haven't experienced the comics, the animated series, even Legend of Korra, and all of the novels, and will sit down and watch this for the first time. Because from you and me are speaking from the standpoint that we have basically deeply submerged ourselves into Avatar lore. We have watched the series time and time again as children and as adults to understand everything that's going on. But I don't know if they are just trying to appeal or if they're thinking in the terms of what's going to be the public opinion of somebody who hasn't experienced all of this and sits down and watches the show.
My whole thing is the public opinion. Let's talk about when Avatar had a whole resurgence. Before Avatar dropped on Netflix, and was that during quarantine or was that before? That little face. Before it dropped on Netflix, nobody was talking about Avatar. It's not that it was a bad series. It was a series that came, we appreciated it, and it went. There were no conversations on social media for real. The few times it came up, we talked about how bad the movie was, and all of us were Azula fans. Then it had that Netflix resurgence, and everybody loved it. That's the whole reason this got greenlit. That's the whole reason all these other projects are coming. So when you say, let's take away the core elements to appeal to the folks who haven't experienced it, do you realize that those core elements are even why this got greenlit? Like, did y'all watch the show?
I'm sticking with my theory just due to the fact of who live action remakes are for. And we've talked about this with the Disney thing. Who's the true audience? Now, he said they're trying to appeal to OG fans and people that watch Game of Thrones, but we've already debunked that statement because
we are Game of Thrones fans, and what are we talking about?
So I don't know. I would like to truly know who the audience is for this series. Because if it is the OG fans, these changes that you're speaking of are taken away from the show's main message. So are we really the target?
But here's the thing, who wants to see perfection? Like, let's really just talk about Hollywood and the themes that have arisen in shows and movies.
But my thing is that here's another possibility. With them saying that they are making changes to these characters, because we know that these were main flaws in these characters, by taking that away, in terms they could be a perfect character. Now, is the result, when we watch this on February 22nd, and with them taking those issues away, are those characters going to get new issues? And are these new issues something that's going to resonate, once again, with an audience that hasn't experienced Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Here's my thing. I would be semi open to that if some of these characters' core issues didn't play into the core story at a large, as a whole. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you make Sokka's issue the fact that he's struggling with, I don't get like, give me a random issue, self esteem or something. Like what his struggles with self sexism, and then following in his father's footsteps, taking on a leadership role before he was even ready and prepared, knowing that he was a child who was jealous of the Benders. If you take away the sexism, are you just going to emphasize the other three? That could work.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, the issues that they're bringing up are the core issues that led to a lot of character growth in these characters. But is it possible that, like what you just said, they're going to limit those and then highlight the other issues that these characters had? And maybe they saw those issues more acceptable to present in a live action setting than what the animation did.
But what determines, this is what I want to know. What determines what is quote unquote acceptable? Like when we really talk about writing and people's sensitivities and everything else, what makes sexism unbearable in comparison to genocide? Like, in comparison to that, like Azula is a traumatized child. Like, unless they change her character too, she was neglected, and Zuko was abused. That's childhood abuse. That's child abuse, neglect and abuse.
Mm-hmm.
That's worse than sex. That's acceptable. A dude who says women shouldn't do this is just whoa, don't put that in the show. Come on now.
I don't know.
Come on.
I don't know. I'm gonna be real. I don't know what the thought. You're not tripping. I don't know what the thought process is, and like I said, it could not be as serious as we think it is. But I feel like the fact that they brought it up makes it as serious as we think it is.
Exactly. Like, this is for y'all to go on this promo run and talk to people. This is what y'all talked about. Not that the bending is going to look astounding. Not, oh, we're going to show you the things that fans really wanted to see. No, none of that. Oh, we're just taking elements of the character. What?
Like I said, we won't know for sure what they actually did until the series drops. But I will say this. If it does not hit, y'all not getting a season 2. When I say there are a lot of people who have expectations for this, and the expectations were already lowered when the original creators left.
Facts. Honestly, our expectations were never that high, to be honest. If we being real,
I would counter that, because when the adaptation was first announced and the original creators were announced to be a part of the project, a lot of people when it was initially announced.
Okay, the initial announcement, yeah. When they left,
that's what I'm saying. When it was initially announced, yes, expectations were through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Because anytime the original creators are involved, it's going to come out being heat, because they know their material.
Exactly.
And what I'm saying is that our expectations already dropped 3 years ago in 2021, when y'all said that the original creators left.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting a couple days out from the series. And now we're talking about character changes. We're changing the way the main character reacts to the whole situation. We're changing the way the Avatar state works.
Let's go to the next topic before I get more angry. Because you right. You right, bro.
I'm just saying, if this does not come out, if we can't look at this and be like, it's solid, it's not coming back with a season 2.
I'm gonna be honest, Netflix. Be glad that the Blerd mob ain't big yet. because this mob review, it's going to be even worse than what it would have been if we weren't fans.
If they don't pull this off, cut the cameras. And let Avatar Studios come in. Because the thing about it, I'll give Netflix this. Them dropping the series in 2024, knowing that Avatar Studios is about to ramp up 2025 with the new series and the Aang movie. I'll give them that. Because if those movies in that series had dropped first, and then y'all turned around with this, and it doesn't hit, pack it up. You were definitely going to have to pack it up.
Pack it up.
The series got to be solid.
Because honestly, now that I'm thinking about Netflix, really just has went through an entire wave of let's make animations, live actions. Because did we ever get any updates about Yu Yu Hakusho? Did that air already?
It's already out, but I
have not heard anything about it on my algorithm, and I got nothing but anime on my algorithm.
Nothing. I haven't seen anything about it being renewed. I haven't heard anybody talking about it. It's basically getting the opposite reaction of when the One Piece live action dropped.
The exact opposite. Everybody was talking about One Piece live action. Folks who ain't never watched an anime was hearing about it. I ain't heard none. And for all the folks, well, maybe it's not on your algorithm. My algorithm is filled with nothing but anime and manga. Nothing but. When Yu Yu Hakusho got announced, it was all down my timeline. I ain't seen nothing.
So, but they have to make this hit. The news isn't encouraging.
Not at all. Flawed marketing.
So, we're just going to have to see. We're going to, all these statements to know exactly what they meant, we're going to have to watch it. And it could be as simple as, because I'm going to make a comparison. I went to go see the Mean Girls musical when I was in Orlando. And they changed some of the jokes from the original movie because some of those jokes worked for that time period, but it wasn't going to work in 2024. But the changes to those jokes and some of those lines didn't take away from the point of the story of what Mean Girls is about. So I wasn't mad. And going to the Avatar The Last Airbender thing, it's possible that could be the same case. That they just changed a couple things and it doesn't take away from everything that me and Ryan just discussed happens the same way. They just tweaked a few things here and there. And it very well could be that. Or it could very well be we talking worst case scenario to where some of the things that happened, that this is a completely different book one. This is not even a remix no more. Y'all just sampled the title book one and made a whole new Avatar series.
Y'all took a sample. Y'all ain't even do a remix, bro.
That's what I'm saying. So
and that's my thing. My expectations are low because I said this when One Piece dropped. One Piece was the exception. It was not the rule. Most animations to live actions just don't work. Sonic is somehow working. Applaud them for that. But most of them just don't work. I don't know what's going on in Hollywood. I don't know if y'all just ain't got no fans out there. They just don't.
I don't know. So stay tuned on how this actually turns out. Y'all already know we got a mob review coming. Y'all already know. So best to be solid. Best to be solid. That could be the name of the episode. Best to be solid. Or you gonna get it from me.
I like a tornado flew around. I ain't gonna lie.
But let's move on to the next thing before we get ahead of ourselves with this Avatar conversation.
So them saying that they want to get in the cloud, them saying they want to make that hybrid that's for cloud gaming and on the go, it makes sense how that jumps into their model, but then that just makes it a PSP PS Portal, PlayStation Portal. But